What's good, everybody? Welcome back to another vlog. Okay, so I'm gonna get straight into this one, okay? This one is about ancestral visits. Now, I've had a lot of visits with the ancestors over the last few months. And so I'm about to go over 4 separate type of categories here of ancestors. And we're gonna talk about that a little bit, okay? So I'm gonna start with the heavier stuff. This one is not an ancestral visit, but the other 3 are, okay? This first one is about slavery. So I got it during the day, and then I started meditating on it, and it was so emotional. That night I bawled. Like, I'm not a crier, y'all, but that I really cried. Like, I haven't cried like that in a very long time. So what happened is there's this ancestor that basically is the root ancestor for my Jamaican ancestors, okay? You know what? I'm gonna just tell you the 4 ancestors we're about to go over, okay? So you have the ones that were from Mali, Africa. And so these are my desert ancestors. Then I have Polynesian ancestors, Jamaican ancestors, and Nubian ancestors, okay? So these are the stories we're gonna tell today. So let's talk about the ones from Mali. Now, on my grandfather's side, we have ancestors that are from Mali, and they're kind of like desert people, right? And at one point they were taken, I think this was like 14th century. They were taken, and it was actually a female, and she had long braids, like really long hair. It was done up nice. I honestly think they looked like braids, but they even could have been locks. They looked so nice. And she had this gold jewelry on and cowrie shells. And she had a sister. At one point, they were both taken. And long story short, they were brought to the slave castles in Senegal. And they were separated. Like, the one that's my ancestor literally watched the other boat with her sister go to the UK. So we actually have family in the UK too. She literally like watched the boat, and there were like the crying and the screaming. Like, you could hear the screams of the people on the boat, and you could hear her crying for her sister. And she was sent to the UK, and then she was sent on another boat, and they shaved her hair, so she was bald and even looked really patchy. And that was another thing, that the fact that her hair being taken away, for African ancestors, hair means a lot. Like, hair is their identity. It shows where they're from, who they are. It means a lot. And to have her hair shaved and to see her crying in the bottom of that boat for months and months and months for her sister, and her being taken away from her land and not knowing where she's going, and the stench, it was horrible. It was so horrible. That one is slavery. I still, like, so unbelievably painful when I first was getting into it. But I honor her so much. Now for the other 3, okay, these ones are astral travels. So this is for my Polynesian ancestors. I was really into like water, and whenever I go into salt water, my hair loves it. My hair loves salt water. I love being in water. And my guides were really leading me to understand this water culture. And then I started being led to understand that some of my ancestors were Polynesian, which they were like water-faring people. I thought it was amazing. So I end up astral traveling with them. So the one night I go to sleep, and I wake up, and I'm on this like wooden boat. It almost looks like bamboo. And we were on these oceans, like it was oceans of Polynesia. So I'm with these ancestors, and they're all like really dark-skinned. And they got beards, and they got long hair. They look very African they're very ancient Polynesians, right? So very dark-skinned, afro hair. They were having me steer the boat. They're like, you're going to steer the boat. And they were teaching me, like, you steer with one paddle. It's like this one, like a paddle, you use the paddle of the boat. They steer with it, like just one. And then they use the wind. And then they were like, this is how you chart the stars. And they like use their hand, and they would like track. And they said, in your mind, the map is in your mind. So they could tell where they're going based off of where the stars are at certain times. And they could also know where certain civilizations are from their mind. So they use the stars to literally track where they're going. And the island that we were at, man, extreme deja vu. We're going from island to island, and they're showing me. And at one point, I wrote in here, we were close to an island, and then I fell in the water. And I love the feeling of the ocean in my locks and in the water. And I kept seeing how the ancestors in our hair had a relationship with the water. And I kept saying this for years. I'm like, my hair has a relationship with the water. Like my DNA, something with the water. And I knew from talking with my ancestors that I had water-faring ancestors. So I kind of knew about them. But this was my intense travel with them, which was amazing. I remember falling in the water and these dolphins came. And they were like talking to the bruh. These guys were talking to the dolphins. Like, it was interesting because they made like certain noises, and the dolphins came, and they even like called the dolphins with like a certain click sign. So it was like, woo! It was like something like that. And they came, and then the dolphins looked at them, and it's like they had a mind conversation. And they looked at each other, and the dolphins like would lead them to land. Oh my God. It was so beautiful. It was so beautiful. And they were explaining to me that the whales are like data banks of information for the planet. So amazing. They were like, you could connect with whales and understand wisdom from thousands and thousands of years ago. They have information from Lemuria and Atlantis. I didn't want to leave. Okay, let me get to my Jamaican ancestors now. So I actually used this necklace. So I made an altar beside my bed. And altars are just like places where you could put crystals and put stuff. And it basically is like a vortex of energy. So I used this cowrie shell necklace and I put it beside my bed and I put a few crystals beside there, right? So I wake up in this dark, it looks like a dark room. So I wake up in this dark room and the necklace falls on the ground. And I saw it and I picked it up. And then I instantly got transported to Jamaica. But I didn't know it was Jamaica yet. I just looked around and I'm like, this looks like Jamaica. And my aunt that passed away was in this room with me. It looked like a jungle house. My Jamaican ancestors are actually Maroons. So they're the people that fought against the colonial powers in Jamaica. And they basically were uncolonizable, the Maroons. They had their own civilizations in the mountains, and the Europeans could not trek the jungles. Like, the jungles would yum them alive. They would get eaten alive in the jungle. So the Europeans used to call them the Fire Maroons because the slaves would just disappear in the bush and then come back months later and just burn down everything. And so much of the slave owners would have PTSD when they smell fire because they knew that was the smell of like Maroons coming. The Maroons would come and just disappear in the bush. They would come, take the slaves and disappear in the bush. And then ancestors would be like, the Europeans would be like, yo, where'd they go? The Maroons would guide them and be like, okay, come, you're gonna leave here and then go there at this time. So all the slaves would just disappear at one time. And the Europeans would be like, yo, like, where the hell did they go? And they would come back weeks later with fire and force. And so that's a little back history about them. But we woke up in this jungle house and they had like a jungle civilization. So beautiful. So connected with the land too. And so advanced. They even had like wells and stuff like that. And different ways of like going up the mountain with like ropes. And like ways of like pulling water from the bottom of the hill with like bucket. It was super advanced. It was cool. And I woke up in this jungle house and my aunt that passed away few years ago was greeting me there, and I was like, Auntie, and I hugged her, and then she's like, I gotta bring you to see the ancestors. And the way she brought me outside to the side of the house, and these ancestors were lined up. They were like lined up, and I was greeting each and every one of them. Like I would just stand there and they would line up and I'd just greet them and be like, nice to meet you. And I'd look them in their eyes, and I kept saying, when I wake up, I'm never gonna forget their faces. And I saw so many strong men and women. Some of them were warriors with scars. Some were beautiful healers. Some were shamans. Some were explorers. Like they all were lined up. Most of them were very dark skinned. Some were kind of light skinned. Many were Indian too, like they looked very Indian. It was so cool. I'll never forget their faces. And this is very sacred necklace to me. So if you guys want to use stuff to like connect with certain energies, definitely do so. Definitely do so, okay? Last story about the ancestors was these Nubian ancestors. Now, Nubians are the original Egyptians. So they're known as the original Egyptians. They were so dark skinned, they were blacker than this. Like so black. And they're the ones that actually originally built the pyramids. And so I went to this like museum. I brought my nephew. We were looking at all these like ancient scribes on the walls and ancient pictures, and they were like dark-skinned people with locks and afros and braids and headdresses, very royal and advanced, and they loved gold. They were showered in gold. Wow. It was amazing. And I looked at my nephew and I said, these are our ancestors. These are the people we come from. And we walked around, and then that was it. But I was taking everything in and getting to understand who our people are. Wow, I'll never forget them. And these cowrie shells mean a lot to me because cowrie shells meant a lot to our ancestors going way back to Nubian times. Like, cowrie shells were used at one time as currency in West Africa. It's interesting because I found this necklace before I started doing the ancestral stuff. And you know what's interesting is my ancestor that was first made a slave from Mali and enslaved in Senegal and brought to Jamaica, the only thing she had actually was a cowrie necklace. It was like, I don't know how she got it with her. Maybe that was the one thing that was still on her, but that was the only thing that she had with her that she brought to Jamaica was a cowrie necklace, and she lost it in Jamaica. She lost it after a while, but it was the one thing, and she would always hold it like this. I have no words. But that is for today's vlog. I wanted to talk about those ancestors. I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out.